Top of the morning to you. We are on East Coast time right now. It is 9:49 a.m. There will be a Zoom court hearing. It's called every Monday in the county of Napa is Master Calendar, and that's when everybody shows up to pick a later date for them to have whatever hearing is necessary. Today is Master Calendar, and at 0830, the master calendar will begin. You can go to the Napa Superior Court website and you can go to remote appearances and scroll down to courtroom C. Who will be the arbiter in courtroom C is Judge Robert Stamps. Robert Stamps is one of the defendants in the 42 USC 1983 Civil RICO that's active in the Eastern District of Virginia. That and also the action that's preferred with the United States Department of Justice in the DC court up in Washington, DC. Judge Stamps was the first arbiter at the time he was a commissioner that we went before on January. Well, we went one time on February in December of 2022 because I filed for divorce in March of 2022. First time the respondent didn't respond and then asked for an extension because they went to Mexico. And so we were before Judge Stamps somewhere in December. A date was set for January 25th, 2023, where we returned. And the other individual showed up with an attorney. On that day, it was a sidebar was requested because it was necessary to explain to the judge, because you have to duly inform them that there is a duty to comply with federal supremacy relative to certain laws. And so a sidebar was requested. At sidebar, I explained why, and he had the deputy clear the courtroom. And we went into detail as to why. He kicked the case over to Honorable Victoria Wood, and another date was set. The opposing party showed up with her female friends, or female friend, Cara de Mil Putazos, her friend Maricela. And that individual is connected to the local gangs. Many of the males in her family are the local gang element. She was engaged to an active gang member from the local community. Nice guy, hardworking dude, but I mean, active gang members are still engaged in active gang conduct. And that day, I informed the judge that I may have filed the wrong motion. I filed a request for dissolution of marriage, and that I'm more than likely will have to amend to annulment because my spouse was married to another man for the duration of our marriage. She was married to a man named Marvin Lee Mace Jr. He is a member of organized crime connected to the cartels and other really dangerous groups, and it created this problem. So if you're married to somebody who's married to a dude that's from organized crime, and organized crime kidnapped and murdered your first wife's father in the same areas and the same groups and the loyalties and everything. It wasn't the Sinaloa cartel that kidnapped and murdered my first wife's father. That was a different cartel. But these two people, this individual is a gang member and was arrested for attempting to sell large quantities of heroin and meth to undercover DEA agents in San Diego. It was a large sting operation. That man was married, and his wife and him were co-defendants because they were all arrested together. If you type in Marvin Lee Mace Jr., Vista, V-I-S-T gangs, you can read the newspaper article, what they were arrested for, and the fact that him and his wife were arrested that day. They're listed in the newspaper article. So then he went to federal prison. He was released early and sent to a halfway house that's subcontracted by the Bureau of Prisons. this individual that I'm married to, that I'm trying to divorce, that works for the county of Napa, um, was arrested with this dude. He showed up at the halfway house. She was his case manager, so she knew what he was arrested for. She knew that he was married to his first wife, but then he and her struck up an unsanctioned relationship that would later lead to multiple arrests of her and then them together, and so they were co-defendants. She was released for pending court hearings. And so what she did was she married him under a confidential marriage. That's why in California you can do that. You can marry under a confidential marriage, and only you and that person can access the marriage certificate, where most others are public information. So they were able to keep it hidden. But so for she was married to him, he was married to his first wife, and then, like I said, she married me knowing that she was married to that dude, and she married him knowing that he was married to his first wife. It's a crazy circumstance, but I requested to amend to annulment for dissolution of marriage. But you can imagine, if your spouse is married to a dangerous, read the newspaper article, type in Marvin Lee Mace Jr. Vista gangs. Read the newspaper article. It clearly states that they're extremely dangerous. And you have to go into a courtroom and address this, that these people are still married, it's bigamy. And we went before this judge named Robert Stamps. That's the judge that's going to be there today. So if you want to see this play out in person, this chaos, this nightmare that I'm stuck in here, you can go to the Napa Superior Court website. You're going to go to remote appearances, scroll down, and go to courtroom C at 0830 Pacific time. You'll have to wait till they call our case. But that judge on May the 5th, 2023, unhooked them. Like, I provided all the evidence that this was bigamy, that you have 4 years once you know bigamy. If you're married to somebody else and you're trying to say that they married you without you knowing they were married to somebody else, well, you got 4 years to file for an annulment. And they got married in 2010. We got married in 2012. So it was 2023 when she filed for annulment. So the time had ran out. Once that happens, you then have to go through a traditional divorce. And I presented all the evidence to the judge, and he still unhooked them and left me trapped in this circumstance where I don't have an attorney. She's represented, and we've gone through this nightmare. That's only one thing that he did. On February 20th, 2024, he refused to clear the courtroom when he had cleared it on January 25th, 2023. So people who operate on behalf of the United States, they're not supposed to have to go into a courtroom and say that. And so I went through all these obstacles and attempts. I went to the district attorney's office and all these people, to the county supervisor, congressmen, you name it. I went to them to try to see if they could facilitate a closed door forum so I wouldn't have to go in there. That individual had made threats that she would relay that information to her little cartel gangster people. So when she did that, I went to the FBI and filed official complaint. You don't just threaten people. I created a human life with this person, and I'm trying to protect our son from her reckless behavior, taking our son down into San Diego and down into Mexico with her brother, who is a dropout. But he went to prison for doing home invasions, trying to rob people for drugs. And he got caught, and he went to prison for like 18, 19 years. He got rolled up off the yard onto an S&Y yard. His name is Christopher Vernon Rader, Wolfie from Southeast Tokers. And he came home and he said he was going to save the world, convert everybody to Christianity. And it all sounds good, but you got to keep an eye open for when people come home from the Bing. And I started noticing things, and I told my wife, like, hey, man, you got to make sure your brother's all right. We even offered to move him 525 miles away to where we were at, but he kept on staying down there and hanging out with certain people. So come to find out, he was engaged in sophisticated criminal conduct on a phone that was in our name. My spouse, all of our phones were tethered together, and she was trying to help her brother out, gave him a phone. This fool's doing transactions and tranza on that phone, taking pictures with all kinds of stupid stuff on the phone. Like, man, what is he doing? And when she finally saw it, then she had to acknowledge that her brother was putting himself at harm's risk and her, but she still continued taking my son down there and was trying to travel into Mexico with this dude who was actively engaged in sophisticated criminal conduct. And I was like, nah, man, that's what got my first wife's father smoked. If you know anything about Mitt Romney's family wasn't even engaged in sophisticated criminal conduct. They were the exact opposite, but they got ambushed in Mexico. And they don't care about about whether they don't care about whether it's women, children. They intentionally attacked the convoy of women and children from Mitt Romney's family and dispatched them. And my first wife's father was taken from his home in San Carlos, California. Some of you guys knew my first wife's father, and you guys know what happened. You know who he was and the circumstances around that issue. And it's an unfortunate side effect of living in San Diego, or if you grow up there in certain places, that there's a lot of counter border violence that happens and people suffer. There's a whole lot of murder and kidnapping that goes on in the frontera. And the frontera is the line between America and Mexico. And some people just don't get that. But taking my son into Mexico, it was not the business. And she knew what she was doing. And so we went into this court battle. She made those threats. I went to the FBI. Her and her attorney have refused to go sit down with the FBI. And so has the county. Matter of fact, you can watch the videos and see that I said, hey, let's go sit down with the FBI in San Francisco. I need to see those investigative findings of those investigations that you guys have alleged to have conducted into Veronica Piper Jefferson and Alexis Vossmeyer, who were informed that there was imminent danger and had a mandate, and they didn't do it because my spouse works for CPS. They worked for CPS. And once they discovered that her criminal record led to her losing her parental rights because she was trafficking with this dude, they were like, oh, snap. All they cared about was their own interest, not the interest of my child. So we went into the court and I presented the necessary evidence to Victoria Wood, but this attorney and his client, they put me on the stand and they demanded operational information, which is a crime. To provide material support to an FTO under 18 USC 2339 Bravo, it's a crime. And so extracting, which some of these attorneys do that. They're employed by organized crime groups, and so they use their judicial access to the court as an officer of the court to allocate information to relay it to people, and it could lead to loss of human life. That dude up in Canada, the Canadian athlete dude or whatever, it was his attorney that said make these people disappear or this person, and the case disappears. And they did that, but that's not what happened. And now that attorney is in custody because sometimes these attorneys are dirty. So you're going to see an attorney named Gregory Carl Winter. That's exactly what he did. He did it in front of all kinds of witnesses. Let's just say that there's proof positive floating around, you know what I'm saying? And there's proof positive on all these judges because they did their part to make this so. These two people couldn't have got away with this if it wasn't for the help of the judges, because the request to go in camera was made from the outset, from day one. They were duly informed, and the request to go in camera, that's not on camera, that's in the judge's quarters. It was made incessantly. I explained to them why. They just kept ignoring it. And so they played their hand in affording the information to this piece of shit attorney, Gregory Carl Winter, and his client, the Napa County CPS worker. That's all the judges care about. Like, oh shit, we had this person taking people's children away and scorching people's rights. I'm sorry to use profanity, but it's like today I got to go into a court yet again and deal with the same dude, the same judge who has played the game. They go in there and I got them dialed in. They want to lie. They wanted to play the game. So I started cataloging it all. And now I've preferred action against not only him, but the other people, to include that attorney, to include my spouse, to include the judges, to include the district attorney in Napa. Everybody that wanted to play the game is now parked before the United States Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. in proper federal action. So now they got to make a decision on whether they want to lie to the feds. You want to lie to Cash Patel and Pam Bondi and all that stuff? Like I said, I made the official federal complaints like I was supposed to do. And these Napa County disgusting, pathetic individuals have been using the abuse of the power of the people to make this happen. So today at 8:30 Pacific time, Napa Superior Court website, log in, check, and you can show up from anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, and watch how disgusting this thing is. And this dude right here is the one that's been playing the games for my son's safety and violating federal law. And he lies incessantly, but we caught him in the lie because I got that in writing. He tried to lie and say there was nobody in the courtroom that day. That was a big mistake. He lied to Cynthia Pillsbury Smith, who was the chief judge at the time, because he was a commissioner. So you have to have the chief judge investigate a commissioner. If it's a judge, you can go straight to the Commission for Judicial Performance. So he lied to her and said there was nobody in that courtroom. Ooh, big mistake, buddy. So now not only is there what he did, but there's the fact that he lied during an investigation, during the judicial conduct investigation by his superior, and then he lied. Joseph Solga, same thing. We got them all dialed in. Then you got Mark Bosnecker and the other cats that played the game on December the 18th, 2024. I've asserted federal supremacy from the outset, and they keep just trying to act like that don't matter for nothing. So we'll be posting 12/18/2024 pretty soon, and you'll be able to hear Mark Bosnecker. Earlier in the day, he got mad because I asserted federal supremacy. He then had a hearing and went ham and time with this Laura Noga and this Kendall Barron, these two attorneys. He violated he does this on a regular though, man. He's done this to so many people, and all these people are smooth talkers, but let everybody see, the most importantly, let the DOJ see what the county of Napa does, to include the judges, the district attorney, child welfare services, Jennifer Yasumoto, the court admin, the county admin. Let people see what these folks are capable of when they want to try to conceal their conduct. They've done this to multiple people. They just went way off the rails in this circumstance because what they've done can't be undone. So let everybody see them for who they really are. So today it's going to be Judge Robert R. Stamps. This dude, I got more proof on him. Well, Solga the most. And Solga is the judge that presided over the Paul Pelosi case and gave him that little slap on the wrist. Hey, did y'all know that was potentially his second DUI, and that the district attorney in Napa County may have willfully, intentionally tried to hide his pre-existing DUI? Tried to say, oh, it was a different Paul Pelosi. So there was another DUI listed under a Paul Pelosi from pretty far back, but that would have made that his second DUI. And so there, even though it was from way back, it would have been factored that, hey, this person had a DUI, if that was the case, and then he had a new DUI where people got hurt. And Allison Haley lied to the people at that press conference saying that, oh yeah, no, we charge all of these as misdemeanors. Oh, Allison Haley, you lying so damn much. We found the press releases from the Highway Patrol that state that all these listed people leading up to the Paul Pelosi arrest that all got charged with felonies when there was a DUI with minor injury. But then all of a sudden, Paul Pelosi gets arrested for it, and everybody's going to get a misdemeanor now. They did that so that it looks like they were being equitable and just. But look back at the DUIs leading up to Paul Pelosi where there was minor injury. They got felonies. Yeah. But Allison Haley had the audacity to come out in front of the courthouse, and it's on YouTube here. You can look up Paul Pelosi DUI press conference, and you can see her lie with her own mouth that like, oh no, we're dealing with this just like anything. So if there was another DUI for Paul Pelosi before that, and yeah. So if that's the case, that's something people should have known. I don't know if that's 100%, but I know what I saw her. I've read the Highway Patrol press releases. The other people got felonies when there was DUIs with minor injury. But all of a sudden, Allison Haley's like, no, we're going to do a misdemeanor here. We're going to deal with this just like we deal with everybody else. Allison Haley, quit lying to the people. And this lady's like on an ethics board, and they made her the president of the District Attorneys Association for the state of California. Allison Haley, explain to them who murdered my first wife's father and what did I do for the United States. Explain that to them. And why are you out here aligning yourself with people that are connected to the cartel to try to cover up the legal liability in Napa County, who put Melissa Kelly on the stand, a Berkeley Police Department police officer who was fired for falsifying 5150, and she got caught and she was fired. Then Napa County hires her to be their lead DV investigator. So this lady's been allowed to get on the stand and testify, call herself an expert. She was fired for lying. That's a Brady violation. They didn't disclose that to none of these people. Same thing with this TPS worker. They didn't tell none of the families that this person lost their parental rights because they were out running dope for the cartel, did they? And the multiple DUIs, did they? No, they didn't. Then you got a judge with the DUI. That judge was publicly admonished for misconduct during proceedings. The judge is retired, but is still presiding over cases. It don't make no sense. Then you got an officer, Alfonso Ortiz, Sergeant Alfonso Ortiz. He was caught by another police officer mishandling the drugs and the cash that was seized by that officer. He quietly retired, and Allison Haley refused to prosecute him. Who is that dude? He's the little brother of the sheriff, Oscar Ortiz. This is all a circle of people right here. Alfredo Pedroza, the one that was the subject of the FBI investigation that they wiretapped his phone. You got Oscar Ortiz, you got Allison Haley, you got Alfonso Ortiz, you got Hernandez, who's in that video that's been posted. Then you got Melissa Kelly, you got Lauren, you got all these people that will protect the liability of Napa County. Why would they do that, John? Well, you might want to look into the insurance policy for Napa County. If they do harm to you, that insurance policy doesn't cover that harm. And so what they do is they'll say, oh, you file a claim against us. And they just hand it over to Cheryl Bratton, another defendant in the 42 USC 1983, and also named in the action with the United States Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. Cheryl Bratton is county counsel. And they just flip it over to her and she denies it. They've made it discretionary when it ain't supposed to be. They're self-insuring so that they can make it discretionary if they do harm to you, and they charge the taxpayers in Napa County, I think it's $2.2 or $2.4 million. But if they do you harm through fraud or any other erroneous action, that policy does not cover it. So if you seek redress, like the family of Casey Slusher, who lost their daughter, she was unalive, she was murdered, and the grandmother was like, please go to my daughter's house, go to my granddaughter, something's wrong, right? She kept asking and they didn't do it. And the little girl was dispatched by her mother and the boyfriend. And Napa County was sued and they had to pay, I think it was $5 million. It was the largest lawsuit in Napa County history. They were determined to be responsible for not doing what they should have done. So I think they learned a lesson. And when anybody tries to say, hey, something ain't right here, y'all are doing me wrong, they weaponize the machinery against those people, like what they did to Laura Dunham, issuing a restraining order against her for not disseminating confidential information, but public information. But she has money. She's an executive at Treasury Winery. And so they were able to overturn that. But the individual, the county supervisor, Belia Ramos, went and said that she was doing something she wasn't doing because she was running for election and she didn't want people to know. Neither did the county. They didn't want to know that stuff that was being disseminated. They didn't want people to know. They didn't want voters to know because their intent at the time was to solidify an all-women board of supervisors. That was their whole thing. And they're like, dang it, we got to keep this from the public. And Napa County, Judge Solga granted a restraining order against a private citizen for doing something that wasn't illegal and it wasn't violating any laws or rules. And this lady's a public figure. So Napa County weaponizes that machinery against citizens that they take the money from to buy the insurance and to pay themselves insane amounts of money, man. Insane. Like Christine Briseño, another defendant, she gets paid like $22,000 a month. Allison Haley, like 35 grand a month. Cheryl Bratton, like 30 something $1,000 a month she's paid. But when they do harm to you and you seek redress, they then weaponize the machinery against the taxpayer that they pull money from to pay themselves and to pay for this policy that does not protect that individual. Then if you complain about it, then they then take the tax money, weaponize it against the taxpayer. And then if the taxpayer takes them to court, they then use taxpayer dollars to get the best attorney and law that money can buy to represent them against the person they did the harm to. It's a bizarre circle, and it's time like in my circumstance, they violated federal law, so it's an opportunity for the feds to hold them accountable. They were already investigating Napa County for all that crazy stuff. So at 0830 Pacific time, go on to Napa Superior Court website. You're going to go to remote appearances and scroll down to courtroom C, where you're going to see Judge Robert Stamps and Attorney Gregory Carl Winter, it's the same people that have been doing this game. But what they did was they stepped in poop because it's a violation of federal law to provide material support to what's known as FTOs. So there's no judicial immunity. It's a crime. And so that's what's cooking off in DC and the Eastern District of Virginia, and now obviously at the front door of SCOTUS. So check in, tap in. I got an hour and 15 minutes to go. So I got to continue preparing for whatever mayhem they may kick when I get in there. But I humbly ask, if y'all want to see if there's any merits to what I'm saying, log in and check it out. You can watch from anywhere in the country, any state. You just got to know what your time zone is. So it's 8:30 Pacific is when it starts. It takes a while because they got to go through all these different cases. It's only master calendar, so you're going to hear a lot of go back and forth. But y'all need to see this. Listen to how they behave in the courtroom and what they do. We've stumbled upon overt act after overt act after overt act. But what does it matter if we're not preferring action to correct the erroneous behavior? So you, as litigants, as parents, as people who are here complaining about it, you have a duty to go do something so that they can't get away with doing this to other people.